Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Amanda, and I'm coming to you live from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. And I am standing in front of, or so it seems, standing in front of our Shark Lagoon right now here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. But in reality, I'm standing in our studio, and my friend Carrie is going to be changing all the beautiful things you get to see on the screen behind you. So the two of us are in here making this program come together for you, and we invite you to participate along with us today. So if you have questions or comments, observations that you would like to share, we invite you to contact us, and you can text us at the number that you see on your screen, 562 286 1838. And we would love to be able to answer your questions live during this program. However, if you're watching this at a later time, you are welcome to email us any questions you might have at live@lbaop.org. So either way, whatever time it is, even if it's midnight and you're watching this, we won't be responding right then. But as soon as we have staff available to respond, we can reply to those emails as well. And so our topic today is sharks and conservation. Now, who doesn't love talking about sharks? They are some of the most fascinating animals in the ocean. And why is it? Why are we so fascinated with sharks? Well, behind me, we have a view of our Shark Lagoon, and you can see some of the animals that we have in here. Some of them, actually kind of going right through the middle there, we have an animal that's not a shark, but it is a relative of a shark. We've got some stingrays in here. We've got some other fish. We've got sharks that are swimming by. So this is kind of a highlight reel of what we have in Shark Lagoon. So we're seeing some of our best shots of our animals. But what is it that makes a shark a shark? Why do they stand out? What's different about some of the animals that you see behind me? Like right here, like this animal here. It's a fish. Is a shark a fish? Let's start with the basics. Yes, of course, a shark is a fish. But what are some things you notice that are different about sharks versus those other fish? Do you know of anything that makes them kind of stand out? Why do we have a shark lagoon, a focus on particular sharks versus, I don't know, just any fish swimming around in a tropical reef? What are some things? So I would love to hear from you. Any questions or any thoughts that you have about what makes a shark, why they're different than this fish right here swimming through Shark Lagoon. So if you have any comments, any thoughts, go ahead and contact us at 562 286 1838. Well, while you're thinking of your ideas, I'll share some of the things that I'm noticing. One of the things I'm seeing is how the animals are swimming through the water. Now, you might think, what's the big deal about that? So what? A shark is swimming through water, a fish swims through the water. What do they have to help them swim? Well, they all have fins. But have you noticed how differently they use their fins? Because not all fish swim through the water the same way. In fact, where do you see fins on a shark? Where do you see fins on these other fish? Well, of course, you might think the first fin that comes to our mind when we think about sharks is that fin on their back. That's called a dorsal fin. And if we look carefully, you might notice that these other fish in here have dorsal fins too. And let's see. This one doesn't look like it has one because it is all kind of folded down. So some fish have the ability to kind of fold their fins against their body when they move, whereas sharks can't do that. Their fins are always pretty much sticking out. So let's see if we can find another animal that has a dorsal fin. So there's one of our surgeonfish, our unicorn surgeonfish swimming by, kind of has it folded down. Now on this one, you can kind of see it has a long trailing dorsal fin. So it's maybe not just one triangular shape, but it's kind of folded down, a series of little tiny fins. Now let's look for a shark that's swimming by. Oh, I kind of see one right here. Maybe as it swims by the camera, we'll get a better view. See if we can find the dorsal fin. Oh yeah, look at those dorsal fins sticking straight up. In fact, did you notice that there's more than one dorsal fin? Dorsal just means back, and so any animal that has a fin on its back has a dorsal fin. So if you notice, there's two dorsal fins on our sharks as they're swimming, and they don't really flap those back and forth. So what kinds of fins does the shark use to swim? It's not really using its dorsal fin. What other fins do we have on their body? Well, there's the tail fin, of course, going back and forth. So that's what they're basically using to push themselves through the water. But if we look at some other fish, you might notice that not all fish use their tail fins to swim. Some of them use these side fins. Now, the side fins on these sharks, as they go swimming by, you'll notice that they're not really flapping those up and down. They're keeping them straight out to the side, kind of like the wings of an airplane. And if you think about it, if you were on an airplane and you looked out the window, if you had a nice window seat, would you want to see those wings of your airplane flapping up and down? No, you would not. You want to keep seeing those straight out because that helps give the airplane lift as it's swimming through the water, or swimming through the water, as it's flying through the air, just like these sharks are getting some lift as they're swimming through the water. They're keeping those fins straight out because then they can float better in the water. If you see a shark that's not swimming, it's going to be sitting on the bottom. In fact, do you see any sharks that are sitting on the bottom here? Did you happen to notice this shape in the back over here? So this is a type of shark that is not swimming and is sitting on the bottom on its own. And you may have thought, well, sharks need to keep swimming to stay alive, to be able to breathe. And while that is true of some species of sharks, you can see right here, it's not true of all sharks. And so some have the ability to pump water across their gills on their own. Some have to keep swimming in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to breathe. But I can guarantee if a shark is not swimming, it will be on the bottom. Because if they're not moving forward with those fins straight out, they're not going to be getting the lift to go through the water. But what's kind of cool is if you look at other fish, you might see some that actually are flapping those side pectoral fins to help them move through the water. So anyhow, we're not getting a really great view, any close-up views of some of the fish. You can kind of see this one's moving it's kind of moving its little pectoral fins, those fins on the side back and forth a little bit. But we'll keep our eyes open for that and see if we can see how these animals are using their fins as they swim. Now, there was also an animal that came right through the middle that we said was a relative of a shark, and that one is a stingray. So stingrays have a very different way of moving. They actually do use those pectoral fins, and they look kind of like wings on a ray, but that's their different way of moving. Now, I think it'd be kind of cool, though, to look kind of inside the sharks' bodies and the rays' bodies because they actually are cousins. So what is it that makes them cousins? What's unique about the inside of their body? Do any of you know what it looks like on the inside of a shark's body or the inside of a ray's body? And when I say what it looks like, think about your skeletal structure, like how your bones look inside. Our skeleton is made out of bones, and you've probably heard of fish bones before, and if you've ever eaten fish, you have to be very careful when you eat that you don't get those tiny little bones stuck in your teeth. Wow, great view here. And so sharks and rays are a little bit different, though. Their skeletal structure is not made out of bone. Do you know what it's made out of? It's the same thing we have in our ears and in our nose. It's made out of cartilage. So the skeletal structure inside their bodies is very different than these other fish that you see swimming around. So sharks and rays have a skeletal structure made of cartilage. Makes them a little bit more flexible and a little bit lighter to help counteract that negative buoyancy that they have that makes them want to sink if they were to stop swimming. So also inside their mouth, maybe we should take a look because when we think about sharks, oftentimes we think about what's inside their mouth. Well, I actually have something right here on my screen. I'm going to go over to my document camera. I know. And I think you might be a little confused by what you're seeing maybe. But look at this picture. What is this? To me, well, the first thing I notice are the shapes. I'm like, well, these are some interesting shapes. It looks like we've got like little hexagons here, kind of all fit together. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a soccer ball. But then we also have these really long shapes right here. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they still have 6 sides, but these are a lot longer here in the middle. But what is this? Any idea? Many times people see this and it does remind them of snake skin. They're like, oh, is that a snake skin? But it's not actually snake skin. It's not from a snake. This instead is from a relative of a shark. Now, I'm not going to say it's from a shark, but it is from a ray. So what do you think it is? Is this the outside of their body? Is this their cartilage on the inside? Or is it something else? Well, let me zoom out a little bit. You might think that doesn't help me at all. I still have no idea what it is that I'm looking at. But now we've zoomed out and you can see this is a very flat surface right here. And it's actually got a little bit of a curve to it. So it's kind of curved, but very, very flat. In fact, if you were to take your fingers and just kind of run it over these, it would feel very smooth. You wouldn't feel anything sharp, but maybe I'll show you one that has both parts together. Zoom out a little bit more. And now this, you can see, it actually has two parts of the jaw. What you're looking at here are stingray teeth. And so they're very, very flat for what purpose? Why would they have such flat teeth inside their mouth? They look very different than what we would expect to see for shark teeth. But these teeth are very, very flat. And why is that? Why would they want flat teeth instead of pointy teeth? Well, think about the teeth in your mouth. Do you have any teeth that are different shapes? Any that are kind of flat? How do you use your flat teeth? Let's see. The ones in the front, well, if you look at your front teeth, they're kind of flat in the front, but then the edges themselves are kind of, kind of flat, but not like this. They would allow you to bite into like an apple. So if you wanted to bite into an apple, those long teeth that you have in the front would help you with that. However, if you want to chew your apple, where do you chew your apple? What kind of teeth inside your mouth do you chew it with? Your back teeth. And our back teeth have a very different shape than our front teeth. So they have kind of a flat surface. Our molars help us to chew and bite things and to, grind things up if we need to more. And so that's kind of like what we have going on inside the mouth of a stingray, because all of their teeth grow together in a way that it creates one big flat surface, which is great for cracking hard-shelled things. Can you think of any hard-shelled things in the ocean? Well, also think about where the stingray likes to spend his time, on the bottom of the ocean. And so they look for a lot of food buried in the sand. Things with hard shells might be clams, maybe even crabs. Shrimp have exoskeletons. So small things that might be living on the bottom that they can crack open with those hard teeth, kind of like a nutcracker. If you think back to Christmas time, they're good for crushing hard-shelled nuts. Well, you never see a nutcracker with little tiny pointy teeth inside their mouth. You always see a flat surface for grinding and cracking things. So that's what's going on inside the mouth of a stingray. So now let's look at the teeth of a different kind of animal. Ta-da! Well, wait a minute. What are we looking at here? Let's take a closer look. Here we've got a jaw, but this is not from a stingray. This is from a shark. Except, is this what you were expecting to see? The teeth of a shark looking like this? In fact, do you even see those teeth very well? Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, give it a moment to focus. Now you can see all these teeth. What stands out to you when you look at this? Is this kind of surprising to you? And if so, what is it that makes it so surprising? Well, do you see just a few teeth or a lot of them? Yeah, well, that's definitely something that's different about shark teeth compared to our teeth, is we only have one row of teeth inside our mouth. They have several rows. It looks like this. You might even have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe rows of teeth right here that we're looking at, except their teeth are very tiny. And if you look at the shape, what do you notice about the shape? Well, if you see along the edge here, they're very pointy. So it does look like they have pointy teeth, but again, they're not very big. They're pretty small. In fact, if I was to put my finger by it, here's my finger, they're pretty tiny compared to my fingernail on my finger. But if you look at this other area, like down here, you'll see that they actually have two extra little points on the edges too. So these teeth are also really good for eating things like maybe shrimp. So small things, small invertebrates that might be on the ground, they might be able to crack open some hard-shelled clams with teeth like this too. But are they going to be very effective at helping them eat large fish in the water? No. Well, this right here is from a zebra shark. Now, a zebra shark is one that you actually saw, maybe you didn't know it, looking at our webcam in our shark lagoon. It was the one that was sitting on the bottom. This is what they look like. We call them zebra sharks, but you will notice they don't look very much like a zebra at all, do they? No, this one has spots on its body. But what's really interesting about the zebra shark is when it first hatches out of its egg, and yes, they do hatch out of eggs. It looks very different than a chicken egg. In fact, here in my hand is a shark egg from a zebra shark. Now this one's kind of dried out. It doesn't look, quite the same as it would if it was in the water. In fact, maybe I'll swap it out with that picture I had of the teeth so you can see it a little bit better. So this is what a zebra shark egg looks like. And it's kind of, if you notice the color, it's very different than a chicken egg. And the material, the outside of it, is very different than a chicken egg. A chicken egg is very fragile. You would want to be very careful. And it wouldn't last very long in the ocean if it was in a very fragile shell like that. And so if you're in a place where the waves are going back and forth, you want something that's going to hold up a little bit better. And if it's attached to like a rock, you don't want it hitting into a rock and then just cracking open. So it has a very leathery sort of feel to the outside. But this one is all dried out. But if it was still in the water, it'd be a little bit more puffy. It'd have space for the animal that's growing inside. So the little baby shark would be attached with a yolk sac. And I don't know if we happen to have any pictures that would show the yolk sac. We might not be available. We might not have it available here. But if you ever, oh, here we go. We have a great picture here. This is what we call candling, where we put a light behind it and we're kind of seeing the silhouette of what's inside. So inside a shark egg, this is from a different kind of shark, but you can still see it has that nice round circle, and that's the yolk. That's basically the sac lunch for the shark as it's growing inside of its egg. And then the little baby shark is attached to it. Now, once the zebra shark gets big enough, you'll see the embryo of the shark will get bigger and the yolk will get smaller. And once they've eaten up all of their food inside, you'll see the shark get a little bit bigger. Again, you don't notice that round circle as much. That yolk is being used up and absorbed by the animal as it's growing inside. But also notice all these little filaments, all these things that stick out. Those are the parts that are sticky that come out of the mama shark first before she lays her egg, so that it has something to hold onto that rock with. And it has a nice secure place to be as the shark is growing inside the egg. And it's not going to be tossed all over the ocean. It's not going to crack itself open on a rock, but it can actually kind of stay in one spot. And then mama shark doesn't actually care for her babies at all. She just lays her eggs and leaves them. And then as long as they have that little sac lunch, their yolk sac inside, they're good to go. But getting back to the zebra shark, when it first hatches out of its egg and it swims out, it actually has stripes. And if you look at these, you'll see a little bit more of that black and white stripe that makes them look a little bit more like a zebra. It doesn't take very long, though, before those zebra stripes start to fade into spots. And instead of being a black and white sort of color, it's more like a tan and brown sort of color. But if you look carefully, you can still see the remnants of where those little lines were. So like the white lines and then the darker areas would have been in between. But those line turns into spots. And then eventually they look much more like a leopard or a cheetah or something like that as they turn into adults. But I think they're really fascinating sharks to look at. In fact, we even have, sometimes our guests can get into the water with our sharks when we have our VIP animal encounters going. And we've actually had our guests get in the water in wetsuits with sharks like our zebra sharks. And they're very, very, I've heard people describe them like puppy dogs. They don't feel the same as a puppy dog. Puppy dogs are a lot softer. But if we were to look at the outside of their skin, in fact, you might even be able to notice it a little bit on this. If you look at how the light is hitting it, you might notice they look a little bit rough on the outside of their skin. Do you see that on the outside of their bodies? Well, they have something like they have inside their mouth. They have teeth, but they have teeth on the outside of their bodies too, and we call them dermal denticles. So dermal denticles literally means skin teeth. So it says if they have teeth on the outside of their body. So here's a great close-up view of some of the dermal denticles on a shark. In fact, they used to use shark skin as sandpaper a long time ago because it was so rough. And if you touch a shark, like you can here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in our Shark Lagoon, you can actually take your fingers and go from head to tail. And it feels kind of rough, but not too bad. But then if you go the opposite direction, tail to head, it feels a lot rougher. And that's because one way you're going with the dermal denticles, the other way you're going against them. So you can kind of see the little shapes in between them and a little bit of what might make them feel a little bit rough or pokey if you were to touch them. But different types of sharks have different types of dermal denticles. And they have different types of teeth inside their mouth too. So we looked at the zebra shark jaw and the zebra shark egg. So we'll notice the zebra shark, just because it's got little teeth doesn't mean that it's a little shark. So the shark, it just means that they eat little things. They eat small things in the water. So they have tiny teeth that are great for eating things like shrimp or maybe small fish, but they're not going to help them eat big things. So for a shark to be able to eat big things, they need to have some bigger teeth. Well, then you've got a tooth like this. You can probably take a guess as to what kind of shark this came from. But what I'm hoping to do is zoom in a little bit closer so you can see the edges of these teeth. And what do you notice about these edges? See how they're not smooth? They're actually kind of pointy. Or I should say, almost looks like they have a rough edge to them too. Well, these are what we would call serrated edges. And if you think about eating utensils and when you eat, what kind of eating utensil has a serrated edge? Are you thinking of a knife? That's what I'm thinking of. And what do you use knives for? You use them for cutting. Something that's too big to stuff into your mouth at once, you cut it into smaller pieces. Well, having teeth like this, a shark is able to eat into something that's quite large. All they would have to do is bite into it, shake their head back and forth, and they'd be able to get, they could break off the food. So they don't have flat teeth for chewing their food, but they can honestly kind of break off smaller pieces using these serrated teeth. But if you look at the rest of the shape of it, it's actually pretty big. It's pretty wide. Give it a second to focus again. And at the bottom, its base has a very wide base and it's a very thick tooth. So this is a very strong tooth inside the mouth of the shark. Now, there are also other types of teeth inside sharks' mouths that look a little bit more like this. So notice these are much skinnier. And let's see if we can get it to focus. Here's a nice example right here. If you look at that tooth, it's really skinny. And it's more like, if you're thinking about eating utensils, is that like a knife or is that like something else? It's certainly not like a spoon. What other eating utensils can you think of? Well, a fork. And what does a fork help you do? It helps you to stab something and pick it up so that you can get it into your mouth. So this will help them to capture their food, but it's not going to help them chew it very well. So if a shark has long, skinny teeth, it's going to help them grab a hold of their food, but then it needs to be small enough that they could swallow it whole. So like the sand tiger shark here, they have long, skinny teeth that are great for grabbing slippery, slimy fish and maybe squid, and then they swallow it whole. They're not going to be able to chew their food, or really be able to tear off any smaller pieces of it. So these teeth tell you that this is a shark that just eats relatively smaller things. And so actually a shark that has teeth inside their mouth like this, and I think it's also pretty cool to see all those teeth that are just waiting to come on out, kind of like a big conveyor belt. Because even though I said that they have strong teeth, they actually, the way they work is you might only have a couple that are on the outside and then they fall out. But it's not a big deal, because if a shark loses a tooth, they can grow it right back again. They can lose up to 30,000 teeth in their lifetime. And so these are all teeth that would be kind of not exposed on the inside of their mouth, getting ready to come on out and help them to eat. So these teeth would work a little bit more like a fork. And then if they had teeth on the top, like a bull shark, they could actually cut into them with those thicker teeth that also have serrated edges. Let's see if we can focus. Woo, hold on. Here we go. It's coming back in. There we go. Nice. So thick teeth and serrated edges. Pretty cool, huh? And all of these types of teeth that these sharks have are important for them so that they can do their role in the ocean. They can actually help make sure that the ocean populations are staying steady and also staying healthy, because they want to make sure that there aren't sick fish that are spreading diseases all over the ocean. And so sharks are kind of the lazy ones. They go after the easy catch. And so if there's an injured fish, it's easier to catch an injured fish than it is a healthy one that's swimming really well. And so sharks play an important role in our ecosystem. They help make sure that populations stay in balance and not out of check, that you don't get one animal that's just exploding and taking over the coral reef or something. And they also help make sure that diseases aren't spreading, so that if there is a sick fish, it's going to be taken up. They're kind of like the vacuum cleaners of the ocean, kind of the cleanup crew. So they're great to have around. Looks like right here we have the end of a stingray. So here you can start to see a little bit of its tail and a little bit of its body, I should say, right? Oh, there's another one right there. So since we were talking about stingrays and now we know what they look like inside their mouth, it's kind of cool that we get to see them here in Shark Lagoon. But are there any other questions that you had? Anything you've wondered as we've spent the last 25 minutes talking about sharks? Are there questions that you have? If you have any questions, you can text us at the number that will appear on your screen in just a moment. It'll be right there in just a moment. And then again, we'd be happy to respond to them with an email or right now during our class, 562-286-1838, or email us at live@lbaop.org. But I wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to ask any questions that you had about sharks. Sharks come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Some can be as small as your hand. Others are as big as a bus. The biggest shark, of course, is the whale shark. And since we have been talking about teeth, we might as well show you what whale shark teeth look like. Well, it's going to be hard to see their teeth because their teeth are actually quite small. But their jaw itself is actually quite large. And so this is what it looks like inside the mouth of a whale shark. This is what their jaw looks like. And their teeth are actually really, really tiny because they don't need big teeth. What do whale sharks like to eat? Well, the same things that whales like to eat. They love to eat plankton. In fact, that's all they really can eat because they don't have teeth for eating anything else. So here you can see they have a long, like a wide mouth, a very wide mouth, but it's really only big enough to eat little tiny plankton. You're like, what do you mean? It looks like that whole fish could fit inside their mouth. Well, it could, but it's not really going to help it because it can't eat that fish. It just doesn't have the utensils inside its mouth to help it eat it. So again, you can't really see it very well on here. I could try to bring it a little bit closer, but it's almost like there's just like a little rough ridge here, almost like having dermal denticles inside their mouth. But the whale sharks can get as long or as big as a school bus. So if you've ever imagined going to school, if you've ever gone to school in a school bus, imagine what it would be like going to school in a whale shark every day, because that's how big they can be. So pretty incredible. So sharks of all sizes all need to have our help and our protection. And one of the ways that scientists have been doing that is by actually putting what we call BRUVs into the water. A BRUV stands for Baited Remote Underwater Video. And what they do is they put these videos, or they put, it's a GoPro, and on the end of the GoPro, they put some bait. And then they put it in the water in different coral reefs all around the world. And this is done by a group of scientists with Global Fin Print is the name of this project. And they put all these GoPros and all this bait in the water in different coral reefs around the world, and then they see what they can find. And so here's a picture. You can kind of see the long arm right here coming from the camera would be over here, and then there's some bait here. And so we're going to see what kinds of animals does it attract over. How healthy is this reef? Well, they've learned that the healthiest reef populations are ones where we have good populations of sharks, and also reefs that have been protected, like a marine protected area. In fact, California has a lot of marine protected areas. We don't have as many bright, beautiful coral reefs because we don't have the warm water temperatures here in Southern California. But in lots of other places around the world, we can see different types of sharks, and we can look at their populations, see how many kinds of different species we're seeing, and what other types of species do we see living in those coral reefs. So Global Fin Print has been a great way for us to learn more about shark populations and how they're doing overall on a global scale in the ocean. And if it's something you're ever interested in doing, you might have the opportunity. If you live by a place, actually some of our volunteers here at the Aquarium of the Pacific are specially trained so that they get to watch hours of sharks swimming in the water, and they get to help scientists. They get to be scientists themselves as they are watching these videos of these different sharks and helping us gather more knowledge and more information about sharks in the ocean and how they're doing. So if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to consider becoming a volunteer at a place like the Aquarium of the Pacific, where you might be able to be trained to do things like this. But I hope that you have enjoyed learning about sharks with me today. And we've looked inside the mouths of the sharks, we've looked at the outside of their bodies, we've looked at how they swim. They are truly remarkable animals. They have an important role in the ecosystem. And I hope that if you're ever interested in watching some of our sharks, you can go to our webcam at any time at aquariumofpacific.org. And you can also check out some of our other exhibits that we have here too and watch our sharks swimming in the water. But I hope you're encouraged to learn more about them and to help the ocean and care about it. And if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to contact us at any time. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.